during a cookout in the backyard. My grandfather's words were loud enough to be heard by half the neighborhood as he clinked his beer bottle. "You were really kind to co-sign your sister's mortgage." I gulped down my beverage. "This is my name. Please let me know in the comments where you are seeing this. Have you ever noticed how your relatives utilize your name as if it were their own?" Slowly, I turned to face Grandpa. I still had the slice of lemon from my drink on my lips. "Which mortgage?" I inquired. My grandfather blinked as if I were kidding. "The home." "Gina's home? When the bank requested a co-signer, your mother stated you stepped in." With a laugh, he grabbed the potato salad. "Kim, you bear the responsibility. Well done, youngster." I looked across the terrace at my sister. She avoided looking at me. As if she hadn't heard anything, she continued to fidget with her baby's bib. As well as my mom, she laughed. "Oh, my mother. Did you? While you're asleep?" "Perhaps," she answered, dismissing it like a sweet family story. It was innocuous, casual laughing, as if it were identity theft. The air in my lungs turned to tar, as if this weren't trickery. I gazed at my hands and then at my lemonade. Nothing had been signed by me. I most definitely hadn't committed to vouch for Gina, a lady who had previously taken my college vehicle and vanished. And I hadn't even spoken to a loan officer in years. On the side of I-40, it totaled. I refrained from arguing. I didn't cause any trouble. I grinned, played the part. However, I opened my laptop and requested a credit report that very evening. I burnt my fingerprint on the mouse pad since it happened so quickly. I sat still when I saw the document. My name, my social, Gina's mortgage, my signature. It wasn't my signature, though. It was unsteady, fainted, false, as if my name had been traced by someone using gin or tears. I ought to have sobbed. I ought to have yelled. However, I muttered instead. They actually succeeded. I was ready to burn everything down because the people I considered family had sold off parts of me for a white fence and a 2-car garage. When they took my name, they did it legally. I had it, but they forgot. That night, I didn't get any sleep. Like the ideas in my brain, I laid in bed and stared at the ceiling fan. Quick, incisive, and pointless. My sister was grinning at the BBQ every time I blinked, smug and sweet. My mother laughed as if this were a game, but it wasn't. They believed I wouldn't discover that they had falsified my name on a government paper. I had my laptop, a pen, and 2 cups of black coffee at my dining table by daybreak. I couldn't recall. I printed everything while gripping that tightly. The closing statement, the loan terms, and the mortgage approval. I never put down the ink I never used, along with my name. When they got access to my social media accounts, I was convinced of a few things. My signature was on a good copy in someone's possession. 3, and most relaxing. At the bank, someone failed to perform their duties. I canceled my job, for the first time in 4 years. After that, I did something my family didn't anticipate. I gave a lawyer a call. Not just any attorney. Meredith Blackwell was a beast. She had the kind of smile that was like a blade, silent, sharp, and soft. I told her everything, sent all of the documents. She said calmly after reading it all. They were guilty of felony fraud. "Will you let me handle things from here?" Meredith didn't slow down. We had notified the credit bureaus, filed a formal dispute with the bank, and provided a fraud affidavit by Friday. Yet the icing on the cake, the underwriter was contacted by Meredith. And you know what? There was no face-to-face confirmation, only a scanned signature and a phone call. "You're telling me?" I asked slowly. "They approved a mortgage over the phone with no ID because your sister brought her baby to the branch," Meredith replied. "It's amazing how fast a crying child makes paperwork disappear." I was numb, then livid. The bank wanted to reassess. "Do you know my mother?" Silent. Not a single call. Not even a fake apology text. I knew what that meant. They were hoping it would blow over, that I'd do what I always did, keep quiet for the sake of peace. But this wasn't a family squabble over Thanksgiving seating. They forged my name to steal a life they didn't earn. And I was about to make sure that house, the one they smiled in like it was theirs, was built on quicksand. You ever notice how silence gets loud when people know they're guilty? That weekend, I didn't hear a peep from Gina. Not a text, not a thanks for the house, not even a panicked emoji. My mother, who normally sent chain messages every morning about blessings and gratitude, suddenly went dark, too. It was like they sensed something shifting. And they were right. By Monday, the bank's fraud department was in full spin mode. They called me 3 times just to clarify the situation. They asked if maybe I had forgotten signing the mortgage, if perhaps I'd authorized it verbally. I laughed. Do you think I co-sign a $400,000 loan in my sleep? Pause. Then the rep cleared her throat and said, "We'll be following up shortly." Meanwhile, Meredith was surgical. She contacted the notary listed on the documents, a retired woman whose surprise had never met me. She confirmed it was a walk-in appointment with just Gina and my mother present. No, I'd check. No verification. That was the nail in the coffin. Meredith filed a formal complaint with the state attorney general. She even drafted a letter to the mortgage insurer. And just like that, the wall started to creak. But here's the part that broke me. I found out when they did it. It was the week after I had surgery. I was on pain meds, drifting in and out of sleep, completely dependent on my mother for rides and food. That's when she took my purse and made a copy of my license. That's when she pulled up old job offer documents with my digital signature. That's when she walked into that bank like she owned me. I sat on my kitchen floor, phone, still buzzing with Meredith's updates, just staring at my fridge. Because now it wasn't just fraud. It was betrayal, surgical, calculated, close. When I was weak, they did it. They pretended to look after me as they did it. They dubbed it love. However, they forgot something. When a quiet girl is cornered, the person who maintained harmony at all times, swallowed the rage. Despite the burns, I smiled. You should offer up a prayer. She never gains the ability to defend herself, because I didn't come for retribution after I did. Justice is what I came for. The house had a pale blue door and was situated on a corner lot with hedges trimmed, as if it were attempting to appear innocent, as if it hadn't been constructed using deception, theft, and a fake signature. I only ever drove by once. Gina was outside watering plants as if she owned the sun while wearing pajama pants and no shoes. In the grass, her toddler let out a squeal. Like some southern matriarch, my mother sipped iced tea while swinging on the porch. They appeared so serene, and for a single flickering second, that is, I was guilty. However, since peace based on stolen bonds isn't peace, it passed. The clock is ticking, and I was holding the stopwatch. My co-signer status had been formally revoked by the bank by that point. My name was removed from the credit bureau's fraud report. Meredith stated that they would proceed in accordance with the law. Speak up. The deed is what we're after. We weren't finished, though. Not even close. You see, my mother and Gina thought they'd get away with it. Because I don't talk. Because I don't throw plates or yell across rooms like they do. But keep in mind that I plan, so I record her. I brought a civil lawsuit alleging financial damages, emotional distress, and identity theft. On a Wednesday, Meredith served it. With the same hand she used to forge mine, Gina signed for it as she opened the door, baby on her hip, mascara partially applied. Lyrical. My mother called 3 hours later. She didn't ask how I was for the first time in weeks. She didn't apologize. "How could you do this to your sister?" she asked. "She's got a kid." The phone slapped me and I blinked at it. This is what she did to me. Silently, I said, "You also contributed." My mom let out a deep breath. "Camila, we are related." "No," I muttered. "You're robbers." I ended the call. I blocked her, sat quietly and allowed it to pass. After that, I went to the courthouse and filed a motion for an immediate review of the foreclosure because this is what they didn't anticipate. They believed I would blow up. They expected me to scream, cry, or plead. However, I had stopped bleeding for those who sharpen their blades behind my back. I wasn't going to break their house down with rage. I was going to let the law knock, then watch it take everything they stole. The foreclosure notice arrived like a thunderclap. Plain white envelope, black ink, no warmth. Just cold bureaucracy stamped over everything they built on my back. They had 90 days to resolve the fraud, refinance, or vacate, and they were already 30 days in. Gina tried to play dumb at first. She posted sunny Instagram stories, brunches, baby play dates, backyard BBQs, pretending nothing was unraveling behind the curtains. But her captions started to slip. Hard days. But we're blessed. God gives his toughest battles to the strongest soldiers. I almost laughed because God didn't forge that mortgage. She did. I never responded publicly, never clapped back or aired it online. I was silent. The kind of silence that creeps in like fog wraps around you and chokes. That was scarier than yelling, and they felt it. On week 6, I got an email from the bank. They'd officially frozen the mortgage account. No more money could be paid. The allegation of fraud was confirmed. Internal legal was becoming involved in the case. Foreclosure procedures would then start. I spent a lot of time staring at the screen. I then placed the document in an envelope, gave it a clear label, and bided my time. You see, my mother throws brunch every Sunday. It's her thing. Pancakes dripping with syrup and uninvited opinions. All fake smiles, all family. So I didn't get invited. Wearing a black outfit. When I entered, forks stopped in midair. Gina went pale. My mom gave me a big smile. Look who made the decision at last. Like a guillotine blade, I carefully slid the envelope across the table. Just paper and weight. No words. Gina's hands trembled as she opened it. After reading the first line and blinking, read it once more. This isn't real, I assure you. She stumbled. Taking it from her, my mother read it as if it were going to rearrange itself. She spat. You're evicting your own sister. Eyes peeled, I met her. No one is being evicted by me. It's the bank. Then I finally said what I had been wanting to say for weeks. On my name, you constructed a house. Watch it crumble beneath yours now. I walked past the syrup after turning, and the shattered illusions and the silence. I heard my sister begin to cry behind me. I didn't flinch, though, because theft cannot be erased by tears. Furthermore, love cannot withstand such profound betrayal. By week's end, their facade was falling apart more quickly than their mortgage. The post halted. The branches came to a halt. Even Mom's passive-aggressive texts stopped talking. Gina called me once, hysterical and crying, pleading with me to speak with the bank. Camilla, I didn't mean to offend you. I simply had no idea what else to do. The infant required room. Rent was drowning us. I gave her space to speak. Allow her to cry. I then posed one query. Before you forged my name, did you even consider your options? She stopped talking. The silence that followed my phone call was more powerful than any phony apology she could make. My civil suit, meanwhile, proceeded like a freight train. Meredith provided financial documents that demonstrated how my co-signature improved Gina's credit enough for her to be eligible for the full loan. She sent in screenshots of texts in which my mother boasted about taking care of everything and made a joke about me not noticing that. My mother wasn't merely complicit, so that hurt. She planned it. In order to allow her younger daughter to play house, she allowed her older daughter to be collateral damage. The following day, I received a letter. My mother's handwriting was still flawlessly looped. I hope you're happy, I said. This family has been humiliated by you. Gina's house might be taken away. I hope you realize what you've done someday, even though your nephew may not. As I turned the paper over in my hands while sitting on the couch, I came to the realization that my mother had never begged for forgiveness. All she ever asked for was quiet. But that me, the quiet, obedient girl who kept to herself to maintain harmony, she had left. The day I saw my name on a document I never signed, that girl passed away. I don't keep secrets anymore. She does not bear guilt that is not her own. She refuses to comply in order to stay out of trouble. The storm is her, so I sent the letter back, with another delivery, not with words. My mother is listed as an accessory to identity theft in the court's official filing. She created a life for someone else using my name. Now I was taking it all apart with hers. They have no idea how thorough I can be if they assumed I would stop at brunch when I'm awake at last. With the weight of a funeral, the court date finally arrived. I wore clean navy lines with my hair pulled back and only facts, not feelings. Fire beneath the skin. Sitting opposite me, pale and shaking, Gina clutched a tissue as if it would save her life. My mom was sitting next to her, her jaw clenched so tightly I thought it might break. Gina collapsed when the judge read the charges of fraud, identity theft, and financial damages. I had no intention of hurting her. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "All I needed was assistance." The judge remained unflinching. "You required assistance, so without your sister's knowledge, you falsified her name on a mortgage document?" Gina gave a nod. Her face was flushed with shame, but it was too late. They then invited me to talk. I got to my feet. My hands remained steady. "Camilla Whitaker is my name." I was clear in my statement. I've been the quiet daughter, the helper, the one who says yes while the family takes care of things for years. I gave my mother a direct look. However, I've changed as a woman. I looked over at the judge. My name was stolen, my trust, my credit, and they succeeded. As though I wouldn't notice, I laughed, like I didn't exist. The courtroom remained silent. I'm not looking for retribution. I'm calling for repercussions. The magistrate gave a nod. Within the hour, he ruled. Gina had 30 days to leave the house. I was granted $48,000 in civil damages, and my mother was formally prohibited from co-signing any financial documents under my name going forward. They referred to it as justice, but it was mourning for me, because trust was not the only thing that perished. I believed I had that kind of family. I took a final drive past the house later that evening. In front was a moving truck. With her child in her lap, Gina sat on the porch, watching as bits and pieces of their lives were packed up and taken away. I saw her, but she didn't see me. I also didn't feel strong. It is not your responsibility to support someone who uses stolen bricks to build their castle, so I felt liberated. Drop it. Give them time to learn. As I drove away, the rain began to fall. However, the sun eventually rose inside of me. Took me months to untangle the mess they made in my name. My credit scarred, but healing my peace. Unearthed, hard-won, untouchable. I relocated to a tiny area close to the lake. It's just me, the silence, and nobody else. Anarchy, the initial one. I was afraid of the silence. It sinks now. I stopped taking calls from my mom. She alternated between venom and guilt in her voicemails. "This family has been destroyed by you. How could you harm your sister's child in this way?" I'm a better parent than this. I wasn't raised by her, though. She taught me to serve those who would never do a thing for me, to swallow suffering, and to bleed in silence. I'm done shedding tears for cowards. She was at a grocery store the last time I saw her. "I'll eat pasta from a box." She appeared bitter and older. She approached with her arms folded like a shield. "Do you truly believe that this makes you strong?" she inquired. I gave her a look, looked closely. "I don't consider myself strong. I walked away from you, so I know I am," I said. Like a door slamming on an old tale, her mouth opened and then closed. I turned and walked calmly and slowly past her. She didn't follow. She would never do it again. In the end, Gina rented a one-bedroom apartment close to the city center. She is reportedly back to her full-time job. No more somber concert fantasies. She hasn't made contact. That's the bad part. However, it also provides me with all the information I require. The silent version of me was the one she adored. Let her take this one, though. She has no idea how to love a woman who has made her own decision. I still love her, though. Even lies cannot cross it from such a great distance. What does no one tell you? Justice doesn't make noise. Clarity and applause aren't always present. At times, it appears to be a woman peacefully eating breakfast by herself. There are times when it sounds like a non-ringing phone. Sometimes it's as simple as ignoring those who have hurt you without letting them know how much it affected you. Because truth has already been the foundation of your rebuild. Ruthlessly, brick by brick, story 2. You owe us for living here. My brother's wife smirked, arms crossed like a queen in her borrowed palace. Then my own mother. My own mother handed me a mop and said, "Be grateful you're not homeless. My name is Elena Parker. And from wherever you're watching this, tell me in comments, have you ever been treated like an intruder in the house you grew up in?" I was every corner of that house still held echoes of my childhood laughter, my drawings on the fridge, my birthday balloons taped to the banister. But now it smelled like bleach and entitlement. They gave my old room to their toddler. I got the attic with a mattress that stacked like a broken back. No heat, no closet, just insulation. Flakes that rained down when the wind blew too hard. And every morning before I'd even had coffee, my sister-in-law would knock on the attic door not to greet me, to hand me a list of dishes, floors, guest bathroom, laundry. Oh, and don't forget the baseboards. You missed them yesterday. She smiled while saying it like I was the unpaid help, my mother, the woman who used to braid my hair and kiss my bruises. She looked at me like a stain she couldn't scrub out. "You've been jobless for 5 months, Elena," she said over dinner once, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You think we enjoy supporting you? Supporting me? I paid for that entire kitchen remodel 2 years ago, gave them the down payment when their business almost folded. I was the emergency fund." But I didn't argue. Not then. I just washed the dishes in silence, breathing through the ache, smelling the roast chicken I wasn't invited to eat, listening to my brother laugh as his wife called me for help. I slept that night with my fists clenched. The next morning I was gone. No note, no text, just gone. But what I left behind in the family safe that made my mom scream and made my brother kneel. Let me tell you something about silence. It's louder when it follows betrayal. I left at 4:12 a.m., took nothing but a duffel bag, a USB drive, and the one thing they never imagined I'd touch, the combination to the family safe. I didn't need their furniture. I didn't want their pity plates or threadbare towels. What I needed was the leverage they buried beneath my father's will. You see, when Dad died 2 years ago, the estate was split in 4 parts. My share was to be held in trust since I was still finishing grad school. Guess who got control over that trust? My mother, who decided I didn't need money when I had a roof. She used my share to renovate the backyard by a hot tub, even paid off my brother's second car. When I asked about it once, her answer chilled me. "You'll understand when you have a family of your own. This is ours now. But I'm not stupid. Before Dad passed, he showed me something. A folder, a password, and a clause. If at any point they violated fiduciary duties, the trust would dissolve and everything would revert back to me. That USB I took had every transaction, every Venmo receipt, every check my mother forged in my name. He thought I was weak, thought they'd broken me. What? They didn't know. I'd been documenting everything for 9 months. I didn't just vanish. I went straight to a lawyer, and the day after I left, my attorney served them with formal notice. Misuse of estate funds, fraud, breach of trust. They had 14 days to respond before the court froze. Every account tied to Dad's estate. 14 days to realize I wasn't the help, I was the rightful heir. And I wasn't playing nice anymore. When my brother opened the safe to find my final gift, not money, not jewelry, but a notarized affidavit stamped, signed, and ready for court. My mother screamed so loud the neighbors came running. But me, I was already 600 miles away, smiling at a sunrise my family would never see again. The first call came at 9:03 a.m., blocked number, straight to voicemail. Then came the text for Mom from my brother, even from his wife, the one who made me scrub her toilets. We need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding. You're being dramatic, Elena. Dramatic? They stole from me, kissed me, humiliated me. And now that the money was slipping through their fingers, suddenly I was a person again. But I spent the morning at a cafe in Charleston, sipping coffee and watching boats drift on the harbor. Funny. Freedom tastes a lot like burnt espresso and quiet. I had rented a small apartment. Nothing fancy, but the lease was in my name, the key in my hand, and the space filled with my air. I didn't know anyone here. Meanwhile, back home, the panic was setting in. My attorney forwarded me a copy of their response, and it reeked of desperation. They admitted to using portions of the trust, claimed it was for family benefit, said I lived rent-free for 5 months and had no complaints, but I had emails, texts, photos of receipts with my name on loans I never signed, and I wasn't alone. My dad's old accountant, Mr. Ross, contacted me out of the blue. Turns out he kept backups of everything he said. Your father didn't trust many people, but he always said you had his spine. His spine? Not my mother, not my brother. Me? Fee leaned in. We filed a motion to accelerate the case, and with the documentation I had, the judge approved it. A hearing was set 2 weeks, and the cherry on top. Every asset under the trust, including the house they lived in, was now under court supervision, frozen, locked in limbo, which meant my brother, his wife, their child, they couldn't sell, couldn't refinance, couldn't even touch the savings account they'd been dipping into, like a bottomless buffet. They thought I was broke, but I was about to bankrupt their lies. I didn't want revenge. I wanted truth carved into the record forever, and I wanted to watch their little empire burn without a match. The night before the hearing, I got another voicemail. My mother's voice cracked as she spoke. Elena, we just want to make things right. Your brother is worried sick. The baby hasn't stopped crying. Can't we talk? You don't have to do this. I played it twice, then deleted it, because I did have to do this. I wasn't just fighting for stolen money. I was fighting for the version of me they tried to erase. The daughter who put family first. The sister who gave her last paycheck to cover their mortgage. The woman they turned into a ghost in her own home. They wanted to skip the consequences. I wanted them to feel them. The courtroom was small, fluorescent lights, stained carpet. But to me, it felt like a cathedral. My attorney laid it all out. Forgery, misappropriation, financial abuse. Then came the exhibits, photos, ledgers, bank transfers from my trust to buy my sister-in-law's SUV. Thousands used to cover business losses that mysteriously funded a vacation to Hawaii. The judge read every line. My mother sat pale, lips tight. My brother fidgeted. His wife whispered furiously like she could unmake the truth by talking fast enough. Then here was my turn. I stood, looked my mother right in the eyes and said, calm but cold. I didn't leave because I was weak. I left because if I stayed, I'd forget I was worthy of respect. You didn't raise a fool. You raised a fighter. Silence. Even the court reporter stopped typing for a second. When the judge ruled, it was swift. All assets misused from my trust to be repaid in full with interest. Control of the trust transferred to me immediately. And the house liquidated to settle the balance. The backyard hot tub gone. The renovated kitchen gone. My brother turned white. My mother whispered, "Where will we go?" And I thought, where did you expect me to go when you handed me a mop instead of love? But I said nothing. Just walked out the way I walked in, upright, alone, and finally free. 2 weeks after the judgment, their world began to crack. The bank called in the mortgage early. Utilities shut off one by one, their credit cards frozen, their friends silent. Funny how fast people disappear when you lose your money and your mask. I didn't stalk their downfall. I didn't have to. Small towns carry news faster than wildfire. This is Ramirez from the corner store. Emailed me. Saw your mom packing boxes with tears down her face. Never thought I'd say this, but good for you, mija. The final blow came when the real estate agent listed the house. I went to the open house. I stood in the same living room where they called me a burden, where my brother's wife once tossed my dinner in the trash and said, "If you want food, work for it." The agent didn't know who I was. She smiled and said the previous owners defaulted. Real shame. I smiled back. Not really. By the next week, they were gone. No forwarding address, no more voicemails, just dust. But here's the thing. Winning doesn't mean healing. I sat alone in my new place some nights numb. Even justice feels hollow. When the people you love chose cruelty. I kept wondering, was I too harsh? Did I become what they feared? Cold, calculating, distant. I got a letter typed, no return address? I didn't know. I thought you were just mooching. Mom lied to all of us. I'm sorry. My younger cousin. She had lived with us for one summer years ago. She was there when I was treated like a ghost. She said my mother told the whole family I was unstable, lazy, refused to get a job. I told them I had anger issues and stole from Dad. They didn't just gaslight me. They rewrote me. But that letter, it reminded me I wasn't crazy. I was just outnumbered. No, I wasn't anymore. 4 came the leaves, burned gold and crimson. I was still learning how to breathe without apology. Then came the knock. It was a Tuesday, early morning. I hadn't even put on coffee. I opened the door and there he was, my brother, then ashen. No designer belt, no polished smirk, just a man who'd lost everything. Knew it. Elena. He croaked, eyes rimmed red. I didn't come to fight, I didn't say a word, but I didn't shut the door either. He looked down like a child caught stealing. We're living in a motel. Lisa left with the baby, took the car. Mom cries every night. I almost asked but I waited. Then came the part. One never thought I'd hear. His voice cracked. You were right about everything. I was selfish. I believed Mom because it was easier, but you didn't deserve any of it. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small. A gold locket. Dad's the one he always wore on his chain. The one that went missing the day of his funeral. I took this, my brother admitted, pawned it, bought dinner that night and told everyone it was company money. I bought it back, and now it's yours. I stared at that locket, tarnished, bent at the corner. Felt like it held all the air in the world. I took it, but not for him. For me to remember. He stepped back like he knew that was all he could give. Then he whispered, Mom's been saying you broke her heart, but the truth is he broke you first, and none of us noticed. I nodded once, not in forgiveness. Not yet, but in finality. He laughed and I shut the door. Then I opened the locket. Inside was a photo of me at 7 years old on Dad's shoulders, beaming. Suddenly, I didn't feel alone because that little girl, she never asked to fight this hard, but she survived. And now she was rising. The holidays came, the kind that used to mean chaos and casseroles and Mom yelling about presentation. Now, silence, peace. A real tree I picked out alone. No one told me it wasn't symmetrical enough. I lit the candles by myself, wrapped presents for people who never asked what I could give them, only what I needed. And then another letter arrived. Handwritten, shaky cursive. Mom's. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I owe you something more than silence. I almost tossed it, but my fingers wouldn't let go. I thought control was love, that if I kept you small, I could protect you. I didn't realize I was shrinking you to fit my own regrets. What followed wasn't a list of excuses. It was a list of memories. My spelling bee trophy in 4th grade. The night I stayed up with her during her surgery. Recovery. The time I gave up a scholarship interview to drive her to a doctor's appointment, she wrote. You were never ungrateful. I just refused to see your love because it didn't look like mine. And when you disappeared, I realized the truth. You weren't the problem, I was. I cried. Not because I forgave her, not fully, but because for the first time in my life, my mother had written me back into the story. Not as a burden, not as a mistake, but as a daughter. A week later, she showed up. No makeup, no jewelry, no entourage. She didn't ask to come in, just handed me a small box inside the safe key. The one you found was decoy, she said, voice shaking. The real one's here, and what's inside? It's yours. Always was. She turned and walked away. I didn't follow, not yet. I opened the box an hour later. Inside the safe, Dad's journals, my birth certificate, a bond in my name worth $120,000, untouched, hidden, like me. They tried to bury me in shame, but what they buried was treasure. No, I was reclaiming it. 1 page, $1, one breath at a time. The first thing I did with the money wasn't what you'd expect. No new car, no revenge shopping spree, no Instagram post. I bought land, just a patch outside the city. Quiet, overlooking hills where the sky never felt heavy. Then I built a little house. Not big, not flashy, but mine. I planted fruit trees in the yard, peaches, figs, because I remembered something my dad once told me while peeling a mango. If they ever strip everything from you plant, it means you still believe in tomorrow. That land became my tomorrow. I didn't tell anyone, not even my cousin, because for the first time, my peace didn't need witnesses. It just needed me. But life has always circles back. One Sunday morning, as I watered the fig tree, a car pulled up the dirt path. It was my brother. He got out slowly. Jeans, t-shirt, no showy watch, just calluses on his hands and eyes that looked tired but softer. He held a small velvet bag. I came to return. What's left, he said. Inside were 2 gold rings, my parents' wedding bands. They asked me to hold them, he explained, but I think they always belonged to you. I didn't understand. Then he added, Mom's moving to assisted living, early dementia. She asked for me last week by name. My breath caught. It was like hearing a ghost say your name after decades of silence. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I invited him to sit under the fig tree. We didn't talk much, just watched the leaves sway. Before he left, he turned to me and said, I used to think you vanished that night to hurt us. Now I know you left to save yourself, and maybe somehow you saved the rest of us too. He walked back to his car, but before he drove away, he looked at the rings again and whispered, I never got to say it, but I'm proud of you. Tears came hot and unexpected because no apology ever comes when you expect it. It shows up quietly, like spring after a cruel winter. Later that evening, I drove to the assisted living center. He was sitting by the window, hair white, frail frame wrapped in a faded shawl. The woman who once made me scrub floors with a bruised back now stared blankly at the sunset, mouthing words I couldn't hear. I stepped into the room. She turned her head. Elena, one word, but it was full of memory, of ache, of something close to love. I sat beside her. She took my hand, her skin paper thin. You look like him, she whispered. I smiled. I hope so. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't need to. Because here's the thing about closure. It doesn't always come as a confronting option. Sometimes it comes as a fig tree in bloom, or a safe finally opened, or a mother's trembling hand holding yours after all the storms have passed. I left the wedding rings on her nightstand, and as I walked back to my car, I looked up at the stars. The same sky I stared at as a girl on the porch, dreaming of escape. Now it watched over me, not in pity, but in quiet celebration as I made it out, as I came back on my own terms, because in the end I didn't just vanish. I rose, Story 3. All of them were inside, toasting and laughing, celebrating 40 years of a romance that I didn't seem to be a part of. I foolishly held the cake, roses and buttercream on red velvet. I had left early from work. On the box, I had written to the most beautiful love I had ever seen. However, the door remained closed. Only a crack. Only her eye. Then she whispered, "Tonight is only for married couples. You would feel uncomfortable. Danielle Carter's my name. Please let me know in the comments where you are viewing this. Have you ever experienced unfamiliar treatment from members of your own family?" Above me, the porch light flickered. That eerie yellow glow buzzed as if my presence were too much for it to handle. The cake was still warm when I looked down at it. I had requested that they carefully package it. I had pictured it sitting gently next to the champagne, observing Mom's tears. I back off, Dad. Like a delivery girl who misread the address and left, place it on the concrete. I refrained from crying. Not initially. I went to my car, sat quietly, and allowed the leather seat to embrace me more tightly than my family ever did. I heard my phone buzz at 11:52 p.m. My fiancé was once told by Uncle Greg, the humorous uncle, that I would be too controlling to marry. Adult up. It's not all about you. No background, not a thing. It's just a slap in disguise. I sent him a screenshot as a result. My security camera. Mom forgot about it. I could still access it. She laughed as she opened the cake. She genuinely believed we would invite her. The poor girl believes that broken women should feel special on anniversaries. The voice of my aunt joined in. I watched as they cut the cake and distributed slices to my communion. 8 a.m. the following morning. Sharp. I submitted a single notice of transfer. 17.2 acres belonged to the Carter family. I was the soil on which they all based their dreams, has 6 years of legal status. After I stayed by his hospice bed during their Maui vacation, Grandpa gave it to me. I remained silent. Absolutely not. At 9:03 a.m., the notice was delivered to their doors. It is printed in red, irrevocable, sealed, and signed. After hours of silence, they finally knocked on my door at night, so I let it ring. After lighting a candle, I finally cut a piece of cake for myself. In the morning, the birds could not be heard over their voices. As Ed Renee paced the driveway like a woman just kicked out of heaven, I watched from behind the curtain, coffee in hand. She gazed up at my window as if I might forget the year she called me Danielle if she stared at me long enough, the challenging behind my back. I kept getting vibrations on my phone. Then Dad, followed by a family group chat in which I was magically added overnight after seemingly being excluded for years. "We must talk, Mom. This is probably just a miscommunication. Could we please act like adults, Dad? This is crazy, Greg. Danielle, keep the family intact." On top of a cake. On top of a cake. The cake wasn't the point. It was about each Christmas Eve that I was by myself. Due to the fact that married couples alternate holidays, it had to do with Dad remembering the name of his golf buddy's dog, but forgetting my birthday for 3 consecutive years. It was never about their pride, but about being their daughter. So I calmly texted back, "Kindly forward all correspondence to Tom and Gwen, my lawyer. Going forward, he will be in charge of all negotiations." Banging on the door 5 minutes later. "Danny, Danielle, open the door, baby." My mom's voice broke like a block of ice. I let it happen. I used to sit close to the kitchen, near the coats and casserole lids, and watch every family meal unfold. Once more he pounded. "That's not how we meant it. You know, it was just the theme. The theme. Apparently, unmarried daughters without children didn't fit the decor, and love had a guest list." She finally turned when I stepped outside, and for a brief moment she grinned as if she could turn back time with a hug. I didn't recoil. I gave this family everything. I said, time, devotion, quiet. I held up a hand before she could open her mouth. When no one else showed up, Grandpa gave me that land. "They'll make you feel insignificant one day," he said. and you'll need something they can't handle." She was crying now, but I was crying too. "You locked me out. So now I'm unlocking the door to a future where I'm no longer your shadow." She muttered, "Please don't do this." I leaned in just enough for her to smell the lavender oil I always wore. The one she said reminded her of Grandma, and I said, "You already did." By noon, the story spread like wildfire through town. People who hadn't said my name in years suddenly remembered it real clear. Anthony called her church prayer group. Uncle Greg tried to call his buddy on the county council. Even my baby cousin Megan posted a teary TikTok about family land being snatched by bitterness. Bitterness. Bitterness didn't sit at hospice for 73 nights straight. Bitterness didn't clean vomit off Grandpa's sheets or hold his trembling hand when he asked where everyone was. Bitterness didn't whisper, "Do not be concerned. I'll keep your promise," while he took his last breath. That was love. That was me. But now they wanted to rewrite the story. Make me the villain for simply cashing the check. They left and signed a knock, came at the door. Not loud, not desperate, just who deliberate. I opened it and there he stood. That same ball cap, same cologne, same inability to say the words that mattered. "I told your mother it was a stupid thing to say." He started. I folded my arms. "But you didn't stop her," I said. He looked past me into my house like he was searching for pieces of the daughter he ignored for a decade. "You can't sell the land, Danielle. It's where we all live. Your cousins have houses there. Renee just built her patio." I blinked, and I just bought a wedding dress I'll never wear because my fiancé left me last year, and none of you noticed. He froze. I sent a group text, said I needed support. You know what? I got back. I didn't wait for him to guess. Greg sent a meme. Megan said she was busy with finals. Mom sent a thumbs up. His mouth opened, then closed like a puppet without a script. "I'm not doing this out of spite," I whispered. "I'm doing it because I spent 32 years asking for a room at your table, and now I've built my own." He reached for my shoulder. I stepped back. "You always said family first, but that only applied to the ones who fit your picture frames." And then I handed him the second envelope, the one no one expected. Not a court notice, not a warning, just the final sale agreement signed to a buyer who was turning the land into transitional housing for single mothers. Dad looked up, stunned, and I simply said, "Maybe next time make space for the ones without rings." By sunset, the group chat exploded. Megan messaged, "You sold Grandpa's legacy to strangers," Greg added. "We should have never let her handle anything. She was always emotional." And Mom. "He hasn't come home. Let's talk before it's too late." Too late? Too late was every time I sat in my car after family gatherings listening to laughter spill from windows that stayed shut to me. Too late was when I miscarried at 10 weeks and no one showed up, because that doesn't count as a real baby. Too late was the exact moment she whispered through the crack in the door, "You'd feel out of place." That wasn't a mistake. That was a decision. They'd always chosen each other, even when I bled, even when I broke. So I chose me and the land. It would breathe again. 17 acres carved into small homes for women like me. Women who were told they didn't belong because they didn't have a husband or a title or a baby on the way. Women who made it anyway. The developer met me at the property line that evening. "You sure about this?" he asked gently. I nodded, then turned toward the trees, the ones Grandpa planted with his bare hands. He used to say, "You don't own land, Danny. You care for it. You decide what it grows." I was ready to grow something better than silence. But right then, headlights pulled up in Renee's minivan. She stormed out, pearls clutched, eyes wild. "You're heartless," she spat. "How dare you take what we've built and give it away to strangers with problems?" I didn't flinch. "You mean people like me?" She blinked, didn't know how to answer. I walked to the edge of the land and pointed. That's where my tiny home will go. Over there, a garden for healing, and right next to it, a center for women with no place to go when their families shut them out. She scoffed. "You think this makes you a hero?" I smiled, slow and cold. "No, this makes me free." Behind me, the sun dipped below the trees, and in the silence, I could almost hear Grandpa's voice again. "Good girl, let it grow." And so I did. The next morning, I woke up to silence. No notifications, no knocks, no begging, just peace. I brewed my coffee slow, let the warmth fill my palms like a prayer, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to apologize for breathing. Then came the letter. Slipped under my door in an envelope I knew too well. Pale pink, scented like rosewater. Mom's handwriting. Inside was a photo. Me, aged 6, smiling, frosting on my cheek, holding a birthday cake I barely remembered. On the back, she'd written, "I don't know when we lost each other, but I know I miss this girl. I miss you. I was wrong. I was scared. I let traditions become rules. And I let those rules bury you." There were more pages she wrote about her marriage. How she'd felt like a ghost behind Dad's booming voice. How her wedding ring felt like a leash. Some days she admitted something I never expected. "I envy you, your courage to leave, your refusal to settle. Your silence wasn't rebellion, it was survival. I see that now." I sat there letting the tears fall. Not loud, not dramatic. Just steady, like rain on an old roof. I wasn't sure if I forgave her yet, but I knew she'd finally seen me. And then my phone buzzed. "Was the developer Daniel? He said you might want to come by the site. Something's happened." I drove over expecting sabotage, expecting more drama. But instead, I found candles. Dozens, maybe hundreds, lining the edge of the property. Photos of women faces I didn't know. Notes that read things like, "For my sister who never made it out, for the child I had to walk away from, for the version of me I left behind." A quiet vigil, no hashtags, no selfies, just remembrance. At the front stood a girl no older than 20. She looked at me with red eyes and whispered, "My boyfriend hit me last year. Your center is going to save girls like me." She placed a candle down, then walked away. And right then I understood. This wasn't just revenge. This was resurrection, and I would build it with my bare hands. For every girl who had to leave the party early, and for every woman who was told she didn't belong is now. We did. They tried everything after that, legal loopholes, petitions, even a letter from Uncle Greg's lawyer friend who turned out to be a paralegal with a Gmail address. But the land was mine. Signed, sealed, sold. And no amount of guilt-wrapped Bible verses or crying voicemails could undo the ink. Still, they didn't stop trying. At Sunday service, Pastor Ray preached about forgiveness and prodigal daughters. Cousin Luke tagged me in an old family photo captioned "Before the money changed." Her money didn't change me, silenced it. Being invisible did. The years I sat at the kids' table into my 30s, while Megan's new boyfriend got Dad's recliner and a beer. The birthdays forgotten. The weddings I helped plan but wasn't invited to stand in the way. Mom's eyes dimmed any time I brought up therapy. The money didn't change me. This gave me the pen, and I started writing a new story. Construction began the following week. The sign out front read, "The Hearts Project, a home for women." Starting over. I planted it myself, hands in dirt, sweat running down my back like memory. And then came the day I dreaded Grandpa's birthday, the first one since the sale. I stood by the old oak tree, the one he carved our initials into when I was 5, D plus G. It read Danielle plus Grandpa. He always said we were twins, born decades apart, stubborn, quiet, loyal to a fault. I brought him a slice of lemon cake and a photo of the blueprint. "You'd like this place," I whispered. "Lots of gardens, big windows, no dress codes." I smiled through the tears. Even Mom apologized. Took her 40 years. But she got there. Just then, a shadow moved behind me. I turned. It was her hair pulled back, no lipstick, holding a mason jar full of wildflowers. She looked down, then handed them to me for Grandpa. She said, "And for you?" We stood there in silence, not fixing anything, not forcing it, just two women on scorched earth, trying to make something grow. Then she whispered, "I'm proud of what you're building, even if it costs me comfort." I nodded, because comfort was never the goal. Truth was, finally it was blooming. 2 weeks before the center opened, Dad showed up. No warning, no text. Just his gray Ford pickup pulling into the gravel lot while the paint was still drying on the porch. I watched from the upstairs window, heart steady, not racing. I was done being the girl who flinched at doorbells. He got out slowly, like someone visiting a cemetery. Button down, shirt tucked too tight askew, like it hadn't been worn in years. And in his hand, a box-type shirt. Familiar handwriting on top. Danny, stuff. Old school books, a softball trophy. The dollhouse I built from scratch with Grandpa, wrapped in newspaper, a lifetime in cardboard. He stood at the foot of the porch, eyes searching the fresh painted siding, the solar panels, the garden beds marked with names of women donors. Finally, he said, "You were always the one with vision." I didn't reply. "I know what I did," he added, voice cracking. "I let your mother take the lead. I thought I was just staying out of the way but not stepping in. That was the betrayal that landed hard, because silence had always been his weapon. The times he watched them mock me and said nothing. The nights I cried in my old room while laughter echoed downstairs. The anniversary party where he toasted to the family we built while I stood outside, cake in hand. No. Now he stood before the home I built from their rejection. I came down the porch steps slow, met him eye to eye. "You let them shrink me?" He nodded. "I did. You watched me disappear. I know. And now you want what exactly?" "Forgiveness." He looked down, swallowing hard. "No. I just wanted you to know you didn't go unseen. Not by everyone." He opened the box inside. On top of the dollhouse was a photo I hadn't seen in years. Me and Grandpa in front of the treehouse. He had his arm around me and his eyes said everything. "I forgot to believe you mattered," Dad whispered. I took the box, not as a peace offering, as a memory of what shaped me and what no longer owned me. He turned to go, and just before climbing into his truck, he paused and said, "I hope someday someone builds something this beautiful out of my mistakes." And then he laughed, quiet. Small human opening day felt like a rebirth. Sun rising slow over the roofline, catching on the stained glass window we salvaged from a church that shut down 2 towns over. Women trickled in, some shy, some fierce, all carrying invisible weights. A nurse escaping her husband's fists. A teenager 3 months pregnant with nowhere to go. A grandmother who said, "I just need silence and a window." And they found it. Room by room, heart by heart. We built sanctuary. That night I walked the halls barefoot, listening laughter in the kitchen. Someone singing upstairs off key and beautiful. A child's giggle bouncing down the hall like a hymn. And then I got the text from Uncle Greg. "You really did it. The whole town's talking. Even the mayor, for what it's worth." I was wrong. We all were. I didn't reply. Not out of spite, but because I was busy placing a photo on the mantle. Grandpa, me smiling, whole. Above it, I'd stenciled a quote in gold. Sometimes the ones left outside the door. Build a house no one can be locked out of. 2 weeks later, Mom donated her wedding. China said it had never felt like hers anyway. I used the pieces to create a mosaic backsplash in the main kitchen. Sharp edges turned into light. Dad sent a check. No note, just a name on the bottom. For the ones who didn't get a toast. And on our 6-month anniversary, we held a bonfire in the garden. One by one, women tossed things in letters. They were never brave enough to send shirts from exes. A church bulletin someone had once used to shame them. Me? I dropped in the receipt from the cake I left on my parents' porch, watched a curl burn disappear. No more proofing. No more begging. I didn't need an invitation anymore because I'd created the celebration, and it was full of women who knew what it meant to be forgotten and how to find each other in the smoke. No fireworks, no confetti, just firelight and freedom.